The meeting of the ETSB to order. A physical quorum of the members is not present. However, pursuant to Section 70 of the Open Meetings Act, members are permitted to attend remotely. Either one member of the committee, the chief administrative officer, or our chief legal counsel are physically present at the regular meeting location. In-person attendance and public comments are allowed, subject to attendance limitations required to ensure the health and safety of those who do attend. So clerk, please call the roll.
Okay, and just a heads up to everyone, I do have some newly printed roll call sheets that have moved the chair and vice chair into their place in alphabetical order, which might be easier for everyone to follow per the state's attorney's observation a couple meetings ago. So we'll start with Andalcio.
Here.
Billadou.
Here.
Bekoff. Franz.
Here.
Kramer. Here. Baranowitz. Renahan.
Here.
Carr.
Here.
Scorzy.
Here.
Heckmeyer.
I see him.
I see you.
Here.
James.
Here.
And Tillman.
Here.
Okay, any public comment?
There is one public comment on Keith Creston, Laurel Woodridge Fire Department, record of attendance.
Next item, chairman's remarks. The only comments that I have today is we do have a presentation on our radio replacement by Chief Connolly, who used to be on this committee, as well as Director Hayden, with the importance of updating our radio, interoperable radios. We also have on the agenda to discuss the Policy Advisory Committee with some updating the policy and some possible changes to the membership. So we'll be discussing that later on in the meeting. Do any members have any comments? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion to accept or to combine consent agenda items A, B, C, D, and E.
So, second, Tillman.
Okay, moved by member Renahan, seconded by Tillman. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Renahan.
Yes.
Shar.
Yes.
Scorzy.
Aye.
Heckmeyer. James.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Andalcio.
Yes.
Billadou.
Yes.
Bekoff.
Yes.
Franz.
Yes.
Kramer.
Aye.
And Baranowitz.
Okay, motion passes. I need a motion to accept item A, 6A, the monthly staff report, 6B, revenue report, 911 surcharge funds, item C, the minutes from the Policy Advisory Committee, item D, the minutes from the ETS Board Meeting, and item E, the statewide 911 annual report.
So moved.
Second, Tillman.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Renahan.
Aye.
Shar.
Yes.
Scorzy.
Aye.
Heckmeyer.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Andalcio.
Yes.
Billadou.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Bekoff.
Yes. Aye. Yes.
Kramer. Aye. And Baranowitz.
Okay, motion passes. Item number 7, payment of claims. 7A, payment of claims. I need a motion to accept item 1, which is 20-21-18, payment of claims for March 10th, 2021 for fiscal year 20, total for $4,000-5820, the amount of $823,998.11.
Tillman. Second, Tillman.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on this?
Billadou was louder.
No discussion. Clerk, please call the roll.
Billadou.
Aye.
Bekoff.
Aye.
Franz.
Yes.
Kramer.
Aye.
Baranowitz. Renahan.
Aye.
Shar.
Yes.
Scorzy.
Aye.
Heckmeyer.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
And Andalcio.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. I need a to accept item 2, which is 20-21-19, payment of claims for March 10th, 2021 for fiscal year 21. Total for 4,000-5820, in the amount of $607,435.68. And the total for the interdepartment transfers for 4,000-5820, in the amount of $57.50.
So moved, Tillman.
Second. Eckhoff.
Moved by Tillman, second by Eckhoff. Any discussion on this? Clerk, please call the roll.
Tillman,
Aye.
Indalcio,
Yes.
Ledoux,
Yes.
Eckhoff,
Yeah. Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Kramer,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Star,
yes,
Worzy,
Aye.
Peckmeyer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 7B, purchase resolutions. I need a motion to accept item ETS-R-22-21, awarding resolution to Rave Mobile Safety, doing business as Rave Mobile Safety.
So moved.
921-013 to incorporate a new contract for the second year renewal of Smart 911 services in the total amount of $119,200.
So moved, Tegmeyer.
Second, Teams.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Peckmeyer,
Aye.
James. Aye. Tillman,
Aye.
Indalcio,
Aye.
Ledoux,
Aye.
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Kramer,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Star,
yes,
and Schwarzy.
Aye. That motion passes. Item number 2, I need a motion to accept item ETS-R-2321, recommendation for approval of purchase order 921020 for 4 additional days of training provided by Dr. Kimberly A. Miller and Associates for ACDC and DUCOM Public Safety Answering Points telecommunicators, not to exceed $23,000.
So move, Teams.
second.
Second.
Star.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
James. Aye. Tillman,
Aye.
Indalcio,
Aye.
Ledoux,
Aye.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Kramer,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Star,
Aye,
Schwarzy,
Aye.
and Peckmeyer.
Aye.
Motion passes. I need a motion to approve item ETS-R-2421, awarding resolution to AT&T Inc. for a 3-year contract for the continuation of session initiated protocol utility services in the public safety answering points in the total amount of $315,000. Anybody?
Moved. Eckhoff. Indalcio.
You got them, Ian? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none.
I just think it's, if I may, worth mentioning the work that Eve did with working on this contract and cleaning it up. And, you know, it's gonna net us a savings of about $32,000 a year. The board got an extra supplemental memo on this, and I think that that's good work to continue to reduce costs on services that we can't discontinue or eliminate.
Okay, very, very good. Wonderful. Clerk, please call the roll.
James. Tillman.
Aye.
Indalcio,
Aye.
Ledoux,
Aye.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Kramer, Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Star,
aye,
Schwarzy,
Aye.
and Peckmeyer.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item number 4, I need a motion to accept item ETS-R-2521, affirming resolution to Eola Power LLC for the second renewal of a 1 year of UPS maintenance and emergency repair services for facilities management in the amount of $16,080 and ETSB in the amount of $19,575. Total amount of $35,655, in which the ETSB amount is $19,575.
So moved.
Second, Tegmeyer.
Okay, we got a motion, a second. Any discussion on this? Clerk, please call the roll.
Indalcio,
Aye.
Ledoux.
Aye.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Kramer,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
Shorzy,
Aye.
Stepmeyer,
Aye.
Ames,
Aye.
and Tillman.
Aye.
Motion passes. On to resolutions. I need a motion to accept item ETS-R 2021, a resolution to approve access to the DuPage Emergency Dispatch Interoperable Radio System talk groups pursuant to policy 911-005.2. Access to the DuPage Emergency Dispatch Interoperable Radio Systems deeders as requested by Kane County Emergency Communication, which is Kane County. So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Clerk, please call the roll. Oh,
So on this motion, the PAC recommendation, so this was amended to include ACDC 1 and remove DUCOM Fire 1, DUCOM Fire 2, and amend their fire ops to include DUCOM Fire Ops 1 through 7. It had previously excluded 6. So that's the recommendation.
so these are adding channels to the radio and deducting.
Yes.
you. Okay.
Cleaning.
Cleaning up the system. Clerk, call the roll.
Kramer.
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
Shorzy,
Aye.
Stepmeyer,
Aye.
Ames,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Andalcio,
Aye.
Ledoux,
Aye.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
and Baranowitz.
Yes.
That motion passes. Item 2, I need a motion to accept item 20-21-16, Starcom 21 radio airtime request, Downers Grove PD, to add 2 mobile radios to the ETSB contract.
Move teams.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Clerk, call the roll.
Teams.
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Andalcio,
Aye.
Ledoux,
Aye.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Ames,
Yes.
Kramer,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
Shorzy,
Aye.
and Stepmeyer.
Aye.
All right. Item D, Policy Advisory Committee Membership and Policy. 20-21-22, Policy Advisory Committee Membership and Policy. So I sat down with the Vice Chair, Franz, and our Executive Director, Linda Zerwin, to talk about the current Policy Advisory Committee policy and the membership. And this is an important thing, especially with the upcoming purchase of certainly discussion and purchase of the interoperable radios. So the handouts that are in the packet, there's Executive Director Zerwin kind of gave a background information on how the PAC committee was formed, why it was formed, and who's on it. It is a little out of date because when it was originally created, there were more than just the 2 PSAPs and among other things. And it's kind of morphed into what we need now to kind of be the leaders of getting these interoperable radios, the timeline for getting these purchased. So do you want to throw some information in there, Linda?
Sure. So on the board background, as Chairman Shorzy said, there was, I originally thought this was part of the intergovernmental agreement, but it was a policy that the board adopted, and you received all that information. And so now that we're in a 2 PSAP system, Chairman Shorzy asked me to update the policy for PAC, including some of the discussion points that he and Vice Chairman Franz had. And then there is a recommendation for how the board may consider rounding this out. And the recommendation is currently you have Bill Hayden as chair from Addison Police Department and so that's an ACDC representative. And then Anthony Romanelli from the Sheriff's Office for the sheriff. And at the time that this was done, it was the sheriff was a PSEP. Eric Kramer, who is doing dual duty, which is also kind of against the policy. He moved up when Jim Conley moved off the board. There is a recommended replacement from the ACDC side for Chief Kramer. And then, and that's a fire representative, and then Chief Forsky from Darian Woodridge on the DUCOM side, and Matt Barman from from the DUCOM side. So there's, in order to balance it, the initial recommendation would be 1 police, 1 fire, 1 dispatch representative, which would mean that ACDC should provide a PSEP representative and DUCOM should provide a police representative. And that obviously is for discussion. And then in order to get everybody lined up, if you go to the policy, that would be the membership, and then the terms of office. The first year would be a staggered 1 year, and then Chairman Swartzy's recommendation was PSEPs would be 2 year, and then ACDC and DUCOM would decide which of their police and fire reps would be 1 year and let us know for the appointment. And then thereafter, those seats would be 2-year seats. There was in the policy, it talks about the duties of the PAC. And initially PAC was for radio policy, and over time, this board has given them authority and duties, including review of access requests, and some of those policies, there's about 15 different policies now. Some of those allow the PAC to act unless there are certain criteria that then have to come to the board for additional approval. So authority, return, and then any other duties that this board may want to assign to them in the future. And procedures, it outlines the procedures. Most of these things they're already doing. There was some discussion about whether or not focus groups need to come through a certain policy. And for example, fire station alerting, which is made up of primarily fire chiefs and deputy chiefs, sometimes have policy issues that deal with radios. So right now it would come up. And then there's the standardization goals on the last page. Standardization goals were originally developed through the fire station alerting focus group. The chiefs had outlined certain criteria that they would like to solve with the dispatch of fire calls for service or EMS calls for service. So they created those questions. Those questions also appear in the goals and objectives, which is the next discussion. So that was the draft policy. And then you see it's slightly more involved than what you had in the past.
So, thank you very much.
Not reading it verbatim.
So there's a couple of things that do need to happen today, because the current board makeup of this PAC committee, they're all expired terms. And I know updating this policy was on former board member Sean Noonan's radar. Unfortunately, with the COVID kind of got in the way of that. So the things that I'm recommending is that we increase the membership of this committee from the current 5 members to 6 members. And like Executive Director Zerwin said, you would have a representative from the PSAPs, the police, and the fire from both PSAPs. So there's your 6 members. We want them on 2-year terms, but because we don't want everyone to expire at the 2nd year, we're going to have 2 of those 6 members be appointed to 1-year terms initially. And then from there on out, we'll have them appointed to 2-year terms. So you'll have 2 1-year terms and then 4 2-year terms in year 1, and then after that it'll be 2-year terms. So the importance of this committee, this is an extremely important committee, and we've had some excellent representatives on this board currently. But we need to update this policy. So what I'm looking for, if there's no discussion, any more discussion, I'm looking for a motion to accept this updated policy. Mr. Franz, yes.
Can I make a couple quick questions and a couple comments
Yes,
before we
please.
make a motion? Or would you like a motion first?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. So let me just clarify. These Zoom meetings make this a little more difficult. So you're suggesting 6 members, 2 police, 2 fire, and 2 PSAP members? Is that what we were saying?
Correct.
So the PSAP members could be staff, could be board members. There's some flexibility there.
Absolutely.
I think it's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
So, well, let's discuss that. Executive Director Zerwin is under the impression it should be staff. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure how if we want to be real strict on that or not. So I think that's a good open question.
One of the important things in this policy is that the people on this committee have to have decision-making ability. And so, you know, when you're appointing a staff member, that you might have a little bit more flexibility in being able to make those decisions versus maybe just a board member or something like that. So, and it is important to be able to speak on behalf of having the authority to make decisions for your PSAP. Yes.
Why don't we just appoint the executive director for the PSAP, and then they can appoint somebody to go in their place if they want to a meeting. It's like we do on our technology committee at the county for elected officials.
Thank you very much.
I was gonna say, currently, the DUCOM representative is Matt Barman, and because this was radio, and you know, certainly Matt has undeniable expertise in this area, having come from Motorola. But so this has evolved to an operational policy review. So the thought was that it would be at the PSAP level, but it's certainly to the board's point of view. I just wanted to add that history to it in terms of operational designation. But and because the state's attorneys whispered to me that because we don't have a resolution, you could vote on this policy, but we'll have to bring it back for a resolution for our process for April. But that would then give us time for you to have your members, if you give you time to do members, and we could do it all at once. Sorry.
Member Tim.
To your point, Linda, that the person on PAC needs to have operational know-how. So that I think very, very important. So member, I thought, you know, would agree with that the directors can be the chosen person and they can have staff.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion, Member Franz?
All right. So I'm open to that. I don't have a strong opinion either way. But I do have one other question, and then I do have a couple comments. So on page 111, Linda, there's no way for you to pull this up on the screen, is there? I know you guys are dealing with a hybrid meeting and we're all over the place, but the ETSB information flow chart for policy, I think this is really important for this board to understand. And the version that I was sent a couple weeks ago has changed slightly, and I'm not making a fuss about it, but there's one question I have. So in the page 111, it shows kind of the ETSB and PSAP directors reporting to the ETSB board, and then all the kind of the ETSB tech focus group, the CAD user group, all kind of funneling that way versus going through the PAC. And I guess I'm very supportive of the concept of expanding the role of the PAC to kind of be that the research engine, the vetting engine, so that when the ETSB sees some of these more complicated subjects, we can rest assured that a group has looked at this that's got police and fire representatives as well as the PSAPs. And I've always been a little unsure of how these issues have been vetted before they come to us. So I think it makes more sense for the PAC to kind of have all these groups focused to them before it gets to the ETSB. But again, that's just my opinion. Maybe others feel differently. So is that the intent, is for the PAC just to no longer have that role of overseeing the other groups, or is this still kind of in flux? That's a long way to ask a question. I'm sorry.
I'm going to defer this to Executive Director Zerwin.
So, when Chairman Schwarzy asked me to do a draft policy, the one that we had looked at was the recommendation of expanded powers. This chart shows how it operates today. So, we elected to include the flow as it is today. And then as you see, the other change here is that the CAD user group is pending, and it's something that we wanted to add, but because of COVID, we haven't had a chance to do that, but we're working in that direction. So that's why it says pending. But this is how it works today. So this is why there's discussion, so that if you were going to do it as Vice Chairman Franz suggested and work it back around, the policy today that you're looking at is really only for deeders, and we have to make some adjustments to the policy language for that. Although it does allow, this policy does allow for the board to confer those duties or additional duties by policy to the PAC, because it says any other assignments in the policy.
I would agree with Member Fran's statement, though, because the Policy Advisory Committee is going to be more on the operational side anyway. So if this group on the right-hand side, the tech focus group, CAD focus group, is going to function towards the operational side, it needs to be focused or funneled through the PAC before it comes to us and vetted out, like Member Fran was saying. But I agree with you.
Any other questions on this?
Yeah, Chairman. So I had a hard time hearing Dee's last comment on it as far as the staff representation. So are we saying with what, Linda, how you described it, that you would appoint the executive directors and then they could designate? I just want to make sure I understood that.
That language, we'd have to put that language in the policy. That was Chairman, or that was Member Eckhoff, pardon me. That was Member Eckhoff's suggestion. And if that's the board direction, we would adjust the policy to reflect that.
So member teams, was that your comment that would work, or just that it stays at the staff level because it needs to stay at the staff level?
I agreed with that.
Okay.
And I think that we can be, the executive directors, and then we can, assign our staff to go.
Okay. And that,
Open.
well, and because that brings up the issue is it, we've never really had delegates before. So is it like, do we have to have an individual, or, is it a position that then you can have an alternate for? I just think we need to give some thought to that. And then the second thing is there, in the new makeup, is there no chairperson as part of this? And it's,
There would be, yes, there would be a chairperson appointed by myself. Okay. Out of those 6 people.
And then I know in other county committees, I don't know what other people's comforts are, but I mean, since it is a subcommittee of the ETSB, I mean, in other committees you would have, and I think we're looking at the elimination of the fact that it's the current policy has said you couldn't have, you would not be an ETSB member on the board, but we're looking at this like as a subset. I mean, would you want the chair position to come from the ETSB board and be that assigned position separate as a 7th member, or just keep it the 6 even and appoint the 6? That, I mean, I don't necessarily have a strong opinion. I'm just looking at the makeup and wondering.
Certainly up for discussion, but the plan would be not to have somebody on the ETS board be on this committee. So there would not be a 7th position on there. We would assign a chairman, and that chairman would represent that board. Any other discussion? Member Renahan?
So have we decided then, or we need to vote or something on whether it is going to report up through the PAC, and are we going to get a new flow chart if that's the case?
Sure. So just a couple of points. I did put the executive director as a standing non-voting member, just because we do most of the behind the scenes work, so making sure that person stays in the loop, but they're not voting. What I get from the board would be the direct, because we'd have to approve this on a resolution, you want to see language that allows the PSAP director to have a designee on PAC. That would be the first thing. I think I need to add language in here that says the chair is appointed by the chairman of the ETSB. I don't know that I specifically had that in there, so I made that note. And then I'm hearing that the direction of the board would be to include all policies related to operations, because certainly there are things that the ETS board would not go through the path for, that are just particular, it's more operational. And then the ETS board has certain other things, but and then on the flow chart, if that's where you're going, then yes, the flow chart would be amended. And then the other thing in the flow chart would be whether or not you're going to have a finance group, and whether that finance, if you're going to, as long as we're on it, does the finance, if you're going to have a finance group, does the finance group act like the PAC and report to the ETS board? I don't think it comes up through the PAC.
Correct.
That'll be another discussion, but I'll throw it on there.
Vice Chair France.
Sorry, just a couple quick questions. First, thank you for getting this on the agenda. I think this is really kind of critical for us to come together and understand and agree to, in terms for us to get goals that we're all clear on, to get an IGA with the two PSAPs. I think this is kind of fundamental foundation work. So I think it's a great discussion. Number two, as I mentioned earlier, I think it is critical that this PAC scope gets expanded. I think it sounds like we're all in agreement on that. And then number three, I don't think we need to be in a rush to get this finalized. I would suggest that whatever comments and feedback we get today, we incorporate into a policy, and I would share it with the two PSAPs so that the PSAP directors can share it with their members and get some feedback. We want the PSAPs to be engaged in what we do, in my opinion, so that there's alignment and we're all on the same page as much as possible, given that it's much easier to come together on this now because we're dealing with two PSAPs, not 17 or 23 or whatever we had just a few years ago. So I think this should be sent to the PSAPs for their comments, and I think they'll have some good feedback for us to consider down the road here.
Thank you. And I'm going to make some comments. And these are my opinions. I agree with you, and I like the idea of expanded role. I don't want to get lost in the fact that the interoperable radios are an important and huge issue that needs to be addressed, I think, sooner than later. So I'm okay with giving time to iron this out and make sure it's, we're doing it the right way. And with the expanded roles, I think that's important, but I also know at the top of the list are these interoperable radios, and I just want to make sure that this committee does stay focused on that. Any other comments or questions? So I guess direction is to have staff kind of rework this up a little bit and come back to our next meeting to discuss it further and maybe share it with the PSAPs.
So a couple things. One is we'll make the draft and get it out for feedback, because I think if I'm not hitting the mark on what you're looking for, I'll need that feedback. And then, just to be clear, this is a working board. So the assumption here is that any information that's here, if you feel you need to take it back to your association or your PSAP, that's on the duty of the member. So anything that's distributed can certainly be distributed by those members that receive that. And then we can work on that from there. So I would get a draft out probably within the next 5 to 7 days based on what else is going on, but on these points that you've talked about. And then are you saying you want to delay all of the other operations and just concentrate on radio or now, or?
I don't want it to, I mean, if it needs to be spelled out in the policy, then I'm not saying don't include it, but I just want to stress the importance of, not to get lost in the shuffle is what I feel is a primary responsibility at this point. So.
I'll give it a stab and see if I hit the mark.
It's important in aligning the confusion because based on the alignment now, it looks like there's two ways to get the ETS board. It should be funneling through the policy advisory and operational type of discussion.
Okay. Yes, sir.
You're gonna move to table this until the next meeting when she's going to bring a resolution before the board?
So, the question is, we're going to table this to the next meeting and will there be a resolution at the next meeting? So Linda is going to do her best to put down on paper what we've been talking about today. She says she can have it done within 5 to 7 days. So I would suggest when she gets that, she'll get that out to us. And that gives us, 3 weeks to ask questions, share feedback, and so forth. And whether or not we have a resolution, I think is going to depend on.
Well, it's a process.
Mhm.
According to the county board, if I may, a county ordinance says when this board approves things, it has to be by resolution. So we'll have to stick a resolution on top of it, whether you approve it at that point or not.
Okay.
That's just, it's procedural. It's not.
I guess my point is, for now, you just table it.
Okay. Is a motion needed to table it?
Probably should.
Okay. All right.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
There's a motion, a second. Any discussion on tabling? Okay. Clerk, call the roll.
Franz.
Yeah.
Kramer,
Aye, sorry.
Moranowitz, Brennahan.
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
Shorzy,
Aye.
Kettenmeyer.
Aye.
Teams. Aye. Tillman,
Aye.
Indalcio.
Aye.
Philidou.
Aye.
And Eckhoff.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you for all that discussion. We are on item E, 2021 goals and objectives. So, being new to this board, I kind of came up with a generic sort of list of principles. I'm jumping on a moving train because you guys have been doing this for a long time. But we kind of, after speaking with Vice Chair Franz and our Executive Director, able to kind of narrow down some goals and objectives, which I think are important. Goal number 1, develop an intergovernmental agreement between the county and the ETSB and the PSAPs to sustain the 2 PSAP system. Goal 2 is to come up with a mission statement. Goal 3 is our fiscal year 21-22 budget. And goal 4 is determine the timeline for replacing our radios. So I'm going to make a motion that we accept that, but I want to see if there's any discussion first. Being none, is there a motion to accept our goals and objectives for this year?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Tillman. I do have one comment or actually question. Bear with me as I try to find my notes here. So can I get some explanation on goal number 1.2, identify distribution of payment by June 1st, 2021?
Well, that in this year's budget, there is a line item to distribute a total of $1 million between the 2 PSAPs that this group voted for last year. There's nothing to exactly explain how that money is to be distributed. So in the intergovernmental agreement, there will be some guidelines on how that's distributed. And anybody else has any more comments on that? That's
I covered it.
does that answer your question?
It does. I'll segue into another question if I may. So there's some language that's being contemplated in the rewrite of the Emergency Telephone System Act that says in part that I mean, if you want me to read it, I will. This section of the act prohibits an ETSB from distributing 911 surcharge to any local government entity to be used at its discretion and or pay for dispatch contracts that include 911. Goes on to say an ETSB is the entity responsible for authorizing all 911 expenditures, not just an overall contract fee for dispatch needed to facilitate the operations of its 911 system / PSAPs. An ETSB shall not act as a pass-through entity that distributes surcharge money to a local government entity, even if it is distributed as a grant for local spending. An ETSB is prohibited from entering into contracts with local government entities for emergency and non-emergency dispatch functions. An ETSB is not allowed to distribute 911 surcharge to cover the costs of non-emergency, non-911 portion of a contract, but may directly offset the contract expense for the 911 share of the emergency dispatch portion of a contract. So I just, Linda's on the 911 Service Advisory Board, and, I know what the intent is. I know that we're trying to provide some relief to some of the PSAPs and help offset costs. I would just curious to get Linda's take on that piece of language. If it were to make it into the bill and the bill to be approved, how that would impact this item in particular.
Okay, so it's still under discussion at the state board level. That was language put in. So the director of the Illinois State Police has some concerns over the fact that the Illinois State Police receives about $280 million a year that it distributes to 911 systems for surcharge. And so he has been asking for additional audit of how that money is spent. In the case of DuPage ETSB, because we are part of the county accounts payable, the state's attorney reviews our contracts, procurement reviews our procurement paperwork, and the county auditor reviews all of our expenditures. We're in line in that regard. We have the proper protocols. As you know, there's 102 counties, so and there are multiple ETSBs within the state, and not all of them are following that exactly. So they're looking at the model. So when you submit your financial report, which is prepared by county finance for DuPage ETSB, the state administrator reviews all of that, and she has flagged some expenditures, not here, but in other submissions. And so her intent of that language, based on the state police director's desire to have greater accountability, was put into the statute. Admittedly, it is it says two different things and it needs to be cleaned up. And so the intent here is to ensure that whatever money is being distributed based on the allowable cost of the surcharge. So in our case, in the IGA, we would look at, it would have to be earmarked for something that's allowable. For example, not saying this is what we're gonna do, but for example, dispatch personnel is an allowable cost. So in the IGA, we could make that distribution in the formula based on personnel, or, that's obviously the easiest one and the thing that you need the most relief on. So that's kind of what they're looking at. Also, I know that Will County has been doing this for quite a while, and the state director felt that was a solid model. So I reached out to Steve Browder over there to ask him what it looked like and see if that's something that we could just mirror or that you could consider and adjust to your liking. So that's kind of where that's at, but it's a matter of the concern of there's a lot of money, and those who've been on the board for a long time know that at the state level there have been counties that pass through that money and use it for public works or street signs or different things, and so they're trying to lock that down to make sure it's spent for 911.
Oh, Linda, you would say it's safe to say that you have enough background that as we draft the IGA, you'll be able to walk us through the landmines of what would be a problem and not.
Yes, and I believe that Representative Willis, there, as you know from your monthly report, there's a shell bill ready to go. We're working through this language. So I believe that by the time we get this IGA to the board for approval, that we'll know exactly what those guidelines are, because I believe it's her intent to get this bill passed in this session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Mike,
you.
for your question.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Fran.
Sorry, just one quick question. Linda, I know you've been on this group for a long time and done a great work trying to get what's best for ETSB. So do we have an official position on that language as part of the bill? Are we quote unquote lobbying for as much flexibility as possible, which is I think what our position should be?
Well, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. Yes, we obviously want as much flexibility as possible, but there are limitations within the statute on what the money can be spent for. So,
Right, no, I understand that.
but I will say too, that it is also the intent of the state administrator rather, to talk about allowable costs. So we'll be looking at that and see how we can, where that's going to land. There was a discussion about reverse 911, which is that notification software, and whether or not it should be included. And then, obviously we're always interested in report writing software, which we contribute as much as we, this ETSB does a percentage of that as well. So right now the language allows a percentage based on its use for 911.
Yeah, I would just think that our position is that we would love for the state to modify the law as necessary to allow any 911 expense to be able to be used, the surcharge to be used for that purpose.
If I may,
Go ahead. Who was speaking?
Member Tillman. So I've been listening in on the 911 service advisory boards, and I've had conversations with Linda about this. Just so this board knows, it's a complex problem because the state's trying to regulate and make sure that the money is spent for what it should be. And there are other county ETSBs and other joint 911 authorities that maybe are not following the letter of the law, using funds for what could be a gray area, or even, as Linda indicated before, not PSAP related at all. And in my opinion, this is only my opinion, one of the struggles that I think the 911 Service Advisory Board is challenged with, along with the statewide 911 administrator, is, there's funding disparity, if you will, between ETSBs, and that's why the push was made for consolidation, so that the funding could be equitable based on a service area. But as you get further down south, it's very hard to use that same surcharge money for what the DuPage County ETSB can use it for. So I just bring that to everyone's attention, especially Vice Chair France, because it's a very complex problem. And I think they're trying to come up with a bunch of rules on how this money can be spent and layer it in tiers. So in other words, tier one, you absolutely must spend the money for these reasons, i.e. your 911 call taking equipment, such stuff like that. If you exhausted tier one expenditures, then you can move on to tier two expenses. So it's a complex problem. And I think it is something to Vice Chair France's point that we have to keep a close watch on. And I can tell you it's got most of the 911 caucus in the state of Illinois divided on it, in my opinion. So just to give you some background and some context.
Member Brian.
So Linda, just because I'm not exactly sure what the process is, but the legislation draft language that Member Tillman read, is that going to be supported at the SA? I mean, does the state administrator or the director of state police take it through SAB to get their support on the draft legislation, or not? We've seen legislation can pop up anywhere, but is the goal of the SAB to have a model legislation approved by the SAB and then introduced, or is it hard to predict?
This is the model. This is part of the model language. So this is what we're discussing, and in the statutes. So in the emails that you're getting on the meeting notes, all of these statutes were included. So that language was in the distributions. So you're seeing it.
But the hope is that the SAB will vote on it once it's vetted out, and then that'll be what's introduced from the state police.
Right. That's Representative Willis would like to have her bill based on recommendations from the SAB.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a quick question. So with regard to lobbying for ETSB issues, do we have anything like that? I mean, I know the county has its lobbyists and we can always give them direction, but who lobbies on behalf of ETSB issues?
You are prohibited from spending surcharge for a lobbyist. So you don't have one on contract. We, depending on what the legislative issues are for the county, we have used the county legislators, or lobbyists rather. The lobbyists know our message and what our points of view are. So if they're questioned by anybody, they can respond. There are lobbyists for various SAB members, but in the past, since we've done this reform bill, the makeup of the board, when it's a legislative year or the sunset, they put two senators and 2 House reps on the board for the purpose of carrying it through. So it almost makes lobbying a moot point, but some of the associations who have seats, and certainly AT&T has a seat, so there are lobbyists working in that. So that's the other reason why the SAB wants to have a unified presentation, because it is the telecoms and APCO and MENA and the representatives of the counties all coming together saying, this is what we think is best. And it's made a lot of headway over the last 7 years.
Thank you. One other point I just would like to make is I know that there's been talk at the state level on whether or not 911 surcharge can go for interoperable radios. And that's why it's such an important issue to me. You know, you never know what they're going to do down in Springfield. So the sooner we can get this handled, the happier I certainly think that myself and the police and the fire departments in this area will be. So
there's also, if I may, discussion from the FCC about looking at allowable costs. So we're watching that very carefully as well.
Okay. Any other discussions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Mr. Eckert.
I just had a question about the IGA that is supposed to be drafted. It seems, I don't know, I've been on the board for a while. It seems like we've always been working in this direction for a 2 PSAP model, and that everybody's been on board. I mean, I know we have some disagreements about certain things now and then, but I know you and I and Julie are all members of the county board. But since the county board would have to approve this, I think it might be a good idea if you got some specific ideas as to what you want this to say, or Linda does, that maybe the 3 of us and Linda sit down with the chairman and vice chairman, bring them up to speed as to what we're contemplating, because at the end of the day, you don't want to get something that this committee agrees to and then you take it to the county board and they're like, we don't like that idea, whatever it might be. So I just think to keep everybody in the loop so that we don't go one way when.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. We'll make sure that we set something up as this kind of gets going here. So thank you. Anybody else? So I am going to ask for a motion to accept 20-21-23 fiscal year 21 principal goals and objectives.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Franz,
Yes.
Kramer,
Aye.
Marinowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
Worzy,
Aye.
Whitmire,
Aye.
Teams, Tillman,
Aye.
Dalcio,
Aye.
Billadou, and Eckhoff.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passed. On to item number 8, to page ETSB 911 system design.
I don't have anything other than what's been in the report, and going forward, we will call out the DDR's portable and mobile radio replacement as a separate item. So unless there's questions on any other part of the system, I don't have anything for item 8.
Okay, thank you. Gators portable and mobile radio replacement. We have a presentation by Chief Conley and Director Hayden.
So as luck would have it, and this is how we roll, Chief Conley is stuck at a fire scene. And since it's approaching 10 o'clock, I don't know that you're actually sad about that. So we can, and I think everybody's laughing. It's just how it is. So we can have Chairman Hayden do an update. Is he still on? Okay, do an update, and then I would say at this point, because it was Jim Conley's presentation, we'll just pass till next month,
Okay.
if that's all right with the board.
That, any discussion on moving the presentation to next month? Okay, Mr. Hayden, Chairman Hayden.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about this project. Actually, our survey is not done yet. The fire survey was done, completed, but the police department survey is not quite done. It is due March 18th, so I'll have a better report for you next month, of course. But just a couple of comments about it. We share that the PAC actually shares and has a feeling of urgency to get this radio project done. Very aware of the legislation that's going on down in Springfield. A number of our repair tickets are going up. And actually, I know on both the police side and the fire side, that radio is the lifeline to safety and everything those men and women need out there at police scenes and fire scenes. So I feel this urgency to get this project done as soon as we can. And that's about all the comments I have right now. If, like I said, it's due March 18th. Dave Shar has done a fabulous job on the survey itself. It's about 16 questions in length, and it centers on material review. Along with the survey, a lot of material was sent out about information material, about encryption and things like this that the police departments need to be aware of. And there's a section which I call opinion. Do you want that encryption? So a number of different opinion questions. And then, of course, we want to send a message to everyone and make it very clear that this is for sworn personnel only. So there are radios out there, I believe, that went to what you would call as professional personnel, which are not sworn personnel. So this survey also includes issues about that it's for sworn personnel only. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But for right now, those are the comments I have for you at this time.
Thank you so much, Chair Hayden. Chief Shar, you have anything that you would like to add, or?
I believe Chief Hayden summed it up, and I'm looking forward to getting the results so we can speak intelligently and keep the project moving along.
Thank you both so much for your efforts on this. Any other discussion on this? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Chief Kramer, yes, sorry.
You want me to talk about the fire side a little bit, or?
Sure, my apologies. Chief Kramer from the fire side.
I could potentially go over this stuff with you, but I'd much rather have Conley present this to you, because this was the survey that, he kind of drove, and then myself and Gorski kind of made sure that we all completed. We are 100% done, but it's a large project, and the questions that had to go out basically are just designed based on, we just don't know what, because it's so early in the space. So there's a lot of information on this survey, so it's going to take a little explanation, and that's why I think I feel more comfortable with Conley given the presentation. So I don't want to delay this another month, but if you guys had any questions about our stuff, I'd gladly attempt to answer it, or we wait till next month.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Chief. All right, in the order of old business, do we have any old business? Seeing none, new business. I see none. At this point, we're on item 12, executive session. So ETSB is going to go into executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C8 to discuss system security and 5 ILCS 122C1 for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of the public body. So I'm gonna.
We have to go jump into executive session with a different link.
Correct. You should have had that in an email.
First, you need a roll call.
Okay.
Oh. Conley's on.
He's on. So
It's come to my attention that Chief Conley is now online. Chief, are you there?
Sounds like it.
He sounds very busy.
Oh, maybe we should do executive session first.
Chief, if you said something, please speak up again. I didn't quite hear you.
On.
Chief Conley.
Yes, sir.
Hi, welcome.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We had opted to move your presentation to next month, with you being absent earlier. Would it be an inconvenience to you to move this to next month? I don't want to put you out because you are here. You made an attempt to come. So you let me know what you think.
Next month will be fine, sir. I'll make sure we don't have any fires that day.
Thank you so much for your flexibility and thank you for being here, making that effort to be here today. And we'll look forward to seeing that presentation next month.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I know you're dying.
Okay, so I'm going to ask some help from our state's attorney's office here.
Need a roll call to move into executive session.
Okay, so I need a roll call to move this meeting into executive session. With the fact that we will be back in our regular meeting to finish out business, correct? So I need a motion.
So moved.
Executive session.
Second, Tillman.
Second.
Tillman, okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Rams.
Yeah.
Kramer.
Aye.
Moranowitz. Renahan.
Aye.
Shar.
Aye.
Schwarzy.
Aye.
Beckmeyer.
Aye.
Teams. Tillman.
Aye.
Andalcio.
aye.
And Billadou.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We will move into executive session at 10:10 a.m. It gives 6 minutes to take a quick break, and we'll see you guys in about 6 minutes.
Linda, if I can't find the link, I'm calling you.
Okay,
Hi.
thank you. I am calling our regular meeting ETSB back to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Andalcio.
Here.
Biladu.
Here.
Eckhoff.
Here.
Franz.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Moranowitz. Renahan.
Here.
Shar.
Here.
Schwarzy.
Here.
Stepmeyer.
Here.
Eames. And Tillman.
Here.
We have convened from executive session. There is no action being taken. So I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved, Tillman.
Second.
Third.
Got a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Tillman.
Aye.
Andalcio.
Aye.
Biladu.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Franz.
Yes.
Kramer.
Yes.
Moranowitz. Renahan.
Aye.
Shar.
Aye.
Schwarzy.
All right.
Stepmeyer.
Aye.
And Teams.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned. See you guys next month.
See y'all.
Take care.